Analyzing Chinese tanks, frustration and technological backwardness. In recent years, the Chinese military industry has faced serious problems in the production and export of tanks. A striking example was the situation with the sale of VT4 tanks to Nigeria. In 2019, Nigeria purchased 35 units of these advanced combat vehicles, but soon encountered serious technical problems. During an exercise, the tanks failed to fire a shot, which caused a shock to Nigerian generals. In less than 2 years, numerous malfunctions were revealed, forcing Nigeria to look for alternatives and eventually turn to the Russian T-90s. The reasons for the VT4's failures lie in its hybrid design. The basic technology was borrowed from the Soviet T-72 of the 1970s, which in itself was not outstanding. Attempts to add an imitation of Western technology resulted in an inefficient hybrid. Without access to German material formulas and using only schematic drawings, the power plant became a mess. Engines leaked, fuel pumps leaked, and oil leaked out. 9 out of 10 engines had oil leak problems. Leaks in the oil pump caused the engine to overheat, and any spark could cause an explosion. Despite being positioned as the pinnacle of Chinese tank building for export, the VT4 is far inferior to its Western counterparts in key tactical performance. The fire control system, although equipped with advanced electronic components, pales in comparison to France's Leclerc and Israel's Merkava in terms of integrated combat effectiveness. Chinese military experts have held numerous meetings but have been unable to find the root of the problems. The VT4 claims that its frontal armor can withstand Western 120mm armor-piercing shells, but this bold claim is not backed by reliable test data. The VT4's 1,300 horsepower engine improves mobility, but it is still not a traditional diesel engine. Compared to Western tanks with high-tech turbocharged engines, the VT4's promotional materials boast performance close to third-generation Western tanks, but in practice the latest models from the US and Europe are far superior. Meanwhile, the Chinese Army has favored the more reliable but technologically inferior 99A tank. Known for its protective design, the 99A has a tall hull and a relatively small turret to reduce frontal armor area, making the turret armor thicker at the front. This approach enhances frontal protection but weakens the side armor. Even frontal armor equivalent to 650 to 750 mm of homogeneous steel is vulnerable to the latest Western armor-piercing shells. The 99A uses the old carousel autoloading system from the Russian T-72 tank, which saves space, but ammunition is stored under the crew seats. When hit, especially from above or behind, this results in an instant catastrophic explosion, as we have seen with Russian tanks on the Ukrainian battlefield. Western tanks typically use rear-mounted autoloaders, which place ammunition in an armored compartment at the rear of the tank. This design enhances safety and efficiency because when the tank is hit, the isolation devices can block the flames and keep the crew safe. In terms of mobility, the Type 99 tank uses a 1,200 horsepower diesel engine, which is an improvement over its predecessors. However, in terms of adaptability to difficult terrain, it is inferior to Western tanks equipped with gas turbine engines. On difficult terrain, the Type 99 may have difficulty maintaining its pace. The 99A, despite some improvements, still lags behind the latest Western models in key performance metrics due to technological limitations. For example, it lacks protection against improvised explosive devices and overhead attacks, making it vulnerable to modern anti-tank missiles. These problems underscore China's gap in learning from combat experience. In 2010, the 99A tank was considered inadequate and now lags far behind Western tanks such as the Abrams, Leopard 2A7, and Challenger 2. By 2010, many Western tanks had already reached armor penetration resistance levels of 700–800 mm. The 99A's ability to penetrate this armor head-on is highly unlikely. Attempts to increase the power of armor-piercing projectiles within existing dimensional limitations are unrealistic. These projectiles cannot penetrate 800 or 900 mm thick armor. Upgrading existing tanks to fire the new extended armor-piercing shells is prohibitively expensive. Thus, the 99A can only incorporate some active defense systems, making a major upgrade impractical. Whether it was the 99A or the VT4, the gap compared to Western tanks is obvious. Success in actual combat would largely depend on luck. It is interesting to note that production lines of tanks have sprung up all over the world, from the Middle East to Central Asia, Africa, Iran, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. Many of these tanks are sold to Russia and used on the Ukrainian battlefield. If you take these tanks apart and check their parts, you will find that they are of Chinese manufacture as the equipment used is identifiable. This is an example of China circumventing US sanctions. Among China's neighbors, India's tank forces cannot be ignored. Nicknamed the Elephant Army, India currently has 4,600 tanks, including 2,700 T-72s and 1,700 T-90s whose performance rivals China's Type 99. Even more worrying are the 200 Arjun Mk2s, the dark horse that is India's entirely indigenous third-generation tank. They are mostly deployed in the Sino-Indian border region, posing a significant threat to China's western region. China, on the other hand, despite claiming to have 7,300 tanks, relies mainly on older models such as the Type 59, Type 69, and Type 79. The mainstay, the Type 96A, has about 300 units, which may not perform well against India's T-90s. The Type 99A2 is a capable tank, but there are only 500 units. If conflict breaks out in the Taiwan Strait and these elite units are redeployed to the east, the Western Front will remain vulnerable. If India launches a strong offensive, they could potentially overrun Xinjiang and Tibet. The last large-scale movement of Chinese tanks occurred between late July and early August 2022 and was for Operation Ghost Monk, which aimed to overthrow the Taiwanese government. However, the operation was not successful. On August 4, numerous tanks, armored vehicles, and self-propelled artillery were unloaded at the port of Qingdao. By December, satellite images of this heavy equipment in the port were published on Google Earth. This heavy equipment included Type 96 and Type 99 tanks, various armored vehicles, and self-propelled artillery. Satellite images show that the docks are densely packed with these vehicles, with over 1,000 of them in the port of Qingdao alone. China's plan was to use domestic agents to overthrow the Taiwanese government. If successful, tanks and armored vehicles on ro-ro ships were to land quickly and take control. Fortunately, US intelligence was on top of the situation. Sensing trouble, they immediately dispatched Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan and organized an aircraft carrier cruise around the Taiwan Strait. The ships destined for the operation were immediately breached and the altered courses were posted on Twitter. They ended up having to return on July 30, 2022. Everyone is now wondering what China's next move will be. However, with the protection provided by the United States, there is not much to worry about. The CCP will certainly not sit idly by, but US intelligence and countermeasures are encouraging. We will just have to wait and see how events unfold in the future. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for further updates on the situation in and around China. We wish you all the best and see you in the next video.